So we're going to continue with our study of Parshat Noach. We're in the section on Noach, page 87, Perek Tet, Pasuk Yud Chet, Genesis 9, verse 18. Vayiyu, and they were. This is a munach, so this is going to separate us from what's come before and lead into a new situation that goes afterwards. Number one, the ones who survived the flood were involved in redeveloping the land, and they were the originators of races, nations, and of the new civilization as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. So again, we're talking from...
this is on the next page.
This is on the next page, so we're talking about the founding of culture, the founding of ways of living after the flood. So quite obviously we have a sharp division. This is the way it was before. This is the way it is afterwards. So Munach is a perfectly apt note to express that sentiment. V'nei Noach, the sons of Noach. This is a revi'i. So this is something that's going to emphasize the word and make the word sort of stand alone and stand by itself. While entering the ark, the sons of Noach did not exhibit any noticeable differences to one another. Like brothers, they were alike, and they joined and obeyed their father's orders, as pointed out by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So, in the original condition when they went on the ark, they all acted the same. They stood out as Bnei Noach. They stood out as unified, following their father's footsteps, their father's path. So that's how they stood out. They stood out because they didn't stand out, because they were all unified in following what their father had for them to do. Hayotzim, the leaving, with a pashta. So pashta is something that emphasizes the word but leads forward to what's going to come after it. However, the imprints of the flood, number 3, had affected the individual views and inclinations of each of them. They entered the ark united, they left divided. The leaving brothers diverged considerably with respect to their mentality and behavior, as shown by the directional shape of the related reading mark. So, as they're leaving, the leaving from the ark allowed them to define separate personalities and separate tendencies. So the actual going out affected each of them differently. So that's why the word leaving is emphasized. Again, this is not something that really any of the other Mefarshanim pick up on. So this is something that's unique, I think, to this parish.
We were discussing it. We were talking about the Gdilu Hanarim, because you had said something. Remember when they said in Yaakov? We learned from that word that they were the same, and that was a mistake on this part.
Quite different.
Right.
Because it says, and they were taught.
No, it says that they grew up together.
They grew up, but they
together,
were
inferring that they were raised the same way, and which was a disaster for.
They were.
And she knew ahead of time that they were different. She should have looked at their code. It echoed what you said there.
We will get to that, God willing, sometime in 2018.
Actually, what reminded me now is something I always wondered about because the ones that we know, the personalities we know are only after the flood, what they're like, with the whole thing with Cham. And I always wondered, why did God save Cham? I mean, he was just as bad as the whole generation that were, either B'zchut Noah, or maybe he was better before, and as a result of this being cooped up and all that, then his other personality came out. Because otherwise there was no reason that he should have been saved. But if you were saying, according to what you just said, or what he said, is that they weren't those personalities they were after.
Beforehand, their personality was Bnei Noach, unified, single thought, to obey what their father had tasked for them, and that's why they deserved, because they showed respect to their father. They echoed their father's.
Cham didn't show respect afterwards, right?
But
the Yotzim, the going out, is what influenced them. They all saw what was there, and it made them different. Min hateva.
It's like people after the Holocaust said, the flood was the Holocaust of its time. So some people say, how can you believe in God after the Holocaust? And some people say, how can you not believe that God after the Holocaust? So I can picture Cham saying, after the flood.
Well, we'll see if we can see any of that influence from the text. min hateva, from the box, from the ark. This is a katon. So this is a two-part note. It's a little difficult to see in the text. There are two dots there, so if you want to correct it in your text, you can. Number 4, by the individual reflections and experiences from the box, each son carried with him his own thoughts, plans, and ideals, which were the result of his own inclinations, as stressed by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So we had unity of thought before, and we had differentiation of thought afterwards, so that's why we get a two-part note when they go out of the ark. Shem, with a tipcha. Tipcha is going to lead us back to what's come from before, and it's going to slightly separate itself out from the others. Number 5, Shem adopted an attitude which had number 5. We're on the next page because we have to keep on flipping the page back again. On page 88, number 5. Shem adopted an attitude which had matured as a result of the spirit of the box, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So you'll notice that Shem is the only one who looks back and says, oh, the ark was something that saved us, this was something that's good, and he's influenced by that.
And we have what's under him? Tipcha, right?
Tipcha.
And what did you say from the box?
Tipcha not only looks back at the ark experience as being saved, as being protected, but it's got a slight pause after. It's got a separation from everybody else.
So
Shem is differentiated from the other two brothers.
Right.
We also got a second note on the word Shem. Shem, which could be defined as a name, is mentioned first in spite of the fact that he was neither the youngest nor the oldest son. His name symbolizes an abstract idea, unrelated to any tangible matter. Not only was this the characteristic of his own tendencies, but by that attitude, he also outlined the trend for his future generations. A description of God is also expressed as Shem. Right? So we say Shem. The concept here is that Shem has an abstract idea. He's able to realize that there's more than the physical world to focus yourself on. So by the way that he's named, that tells you about a characteristic. And I think we brought this up in a previous talk, that the names that are mentioned in Torah are not necessarily the names that people went by. So when we get to Yitro, we find out he has 6 different names. Why? Because he's somebody who keeps on changing from one philosophy to another, to another, to another, and each name reflects his philosophy and his attitude at that particular time. And in fact, some of the names that are mentioned for him, I don't think appear anywhere in the text. So again, there are different sources and different writings and so on, and midrashim about him. So we get names that reflect someone's character without necessarily reflecting what they were actually called. This might have been nicknames, or these might have been just major features, or so on. And we have to realize that the biblical name is giving us more than just the pshat. This is what he was called. It's also giving us a drash that this is who he was. So if we take the example of Avram, a great father, becoming Avraham, a father of many nations, Av Hamon Goyim, the name changes to explain his different reality.
In the case, say, of Yitro, if he had 6 names or whatever, were they always getting better or more positive?
They always reflected his situation at the time.
Right. But what I'm wondering is, his situation, did it ever have more of a negative, like it was a decline in his personality, or?
There was
his
an up and a down,
situation?
and up and a down,
Oh,
and a
for
down.
him
And
it
a
Well,
down.
what are those? I don't know. It's Yetzer and Yitra. That's all I know. What are,
It's not
Chabad, Chabad,
it's not
it's
relevant
not
to here.
relevant. Okay.
Okay.
But we'll get
Like, I
to
didn't
it.
know if all the different names are usually an ascending thing, but it's not necessarily.
No, it reflects the person at the time.
Right, okay.
But he did have a general arc that he did go positive. No. Oh, there's a question.
No. At the end,
he
he most definitely went negative.
No, but he came back and joined the Jewish people.
He came back and joined the Jewish people, and then by the end of the desert experience, Moshe told Saror Tamidyanim B'ikitam Otam. You have to villainize them and kill them all.
Yeah, but
so
So
by that point, obviously his character did not reflect something good.
what?
Right,
But he
so-
left Midian, I thought.
He left Midian and then he went back
But only to come back, I thought.
again.
Oh, he was killed with the Midianim? No. I didn't know that. I don't think so. Yeah, I thought he left the Midianim. I know he went back after Har Sinai, but
But in
okay,
any
okay.
case.
All right, that's
Yeah.
another
Okay,
story, but.
we're
We're
going to continue on. Number 6. V'cham and cham with a munach. So this is going to separate himself. It's going to separate himself out from what was before and move on afterwards.
Can you say
So we
the
have
note?
this.
I can't even see. Just say the note so I'll know what it's there.
It's a munach.
It's a munah?
Yes.
A chav?
Yeah.
Under the, yeah,
Okay.
right under the.
So
It's not under the ched, is it?
it's under the chet.
Yeah.
It's after the. It's
I thought
after
it
the.
was
It's after the kamatz.
kamatz.
There
There's
is,
a
it's right
kamatz
next
and
to
then
it,
there's a munach.
to the left of it.
Oh, the under the v, you mean? Under the
No.
vav?
The vav has a shva.
Right.
The chet has a kamatz,
Right.
and then it has a munach.
Not
just
my
did.
book.
What kind of
Where is
glasses? What kind of glasses would you like?
I actually brought glasses.
Put them on.
You're right.
You might need
I don't know what they are. I don't
Okay,
know.
in any case, number 6. Similarly, the essential characteristics
Oh, my
of the
goodness.
youngest son of Noach
Oh, yeah,
were
that one.
also described by an appropriate term, and cham, which can be defined as heat, had carried his main significance by his name.
Passion, the black.
It brought his nature to a common denominator as heat, with respect to his preferred habitation, feeding habits, sex, and tempers, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So again, he had a different personality before, separated also from Shem, but separated from the way that he was before the flood. And the name tells us about the way that he defined his way of life from that point on. So he liked to live in warm places, he would eat spicy food, he
The
would
forerunner basis, yeah.
he would have a temper, and so on.
What's interesting
Vayafet.
is specifically, again, the shape of the note. It tells you there's the break beforehand. They were all united,
Mhm.
and now he's just become a very passionate, or someone ruled by his passion, very temperamental.
Just so you think that I'm not going blind, there's another cham coming up, and
Yeah,
that's what I was
second-
looking
yes.
at. Okay. That's
Okay,
what-
no
yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, but sorry.
Vayafet, number 7.
Yafet, yeah.
So this has the stabilizing etnachta under it, so that's going to give us a stable influence with possibly something looking up from it. The two previously mentioned sons and Yefet, or can be defined as of beauty, the oldest son of Noach, afforded his generations features of beauty, comfort, and utility, as suggested by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So certainly there was something in him that was good or positive and able to create some stability, but certainly not as bad as Cham, and not as differentiated and eclectic or able to accept the otherworldly as Shem. So he's firmly rooted in this world, but looking at the good and positive things in this world, if you will. So that's why he at least gets some stability. And we have 2 notes about Yafet. Now, the first note, the combined characteristics of Noach's sons were a distribution of elements that were within Noach. So we're saying that the sons reflected all the things that were in Noach, the goodness of the world, Yafet, the things that are perhaps bad in this world, Cham, and the sense of there being something more and something existential in Shem.
Or maybe
Alan has a question.
no, maybe a comment.
Mhm.
Maybe the Cham part, he had part of Cham, but he put it to good. Like no quality is good or bad in and of itself.
Right,
How you
so
direct
everything-
yourself. The Cham, we have passion, but we have passion for the wrong things. But we have passion. So when you said it was a Noah,
Everything that we have is called a midah. It's called
right,
a measure.
amount of them, right.
A measure means that there is a right amount to use anything. So, is there a right time to be anxious, and to be angry, and to be even violent? Absolutely. The times are very small, but there are right times to do everything in their correct measure.
Has to be the right measure. Too much chesed is also. Yeah.
But we'll see that measure, Mem Dalet Hey 49, is a measure, is a reflection of things that are within this world, things that are measurable, and beyond 49, beyond the measure of this world, Islam is 50, is things that are eclectic and things that cannot be defined in this world. So we'll diverge for a second because we got into the word midah. So we're counting Omer now, and we're told Tisparu Chamishim Yom, we should count 50 days. And what do? We diligently count for 49 days, and then we get to day 50, we get to Shavuos, and what do? Do we stand up at night and say, today is the 50th day? No. Because the understanding of 50 is that 50 is eclectic, 50 is infinite, 50 is beyond anything that is measurable. And if you stood up and you actually counted it as 50, then you define it as the same as the other 49. And you're missing the essence of what 50 is. 50 is, both the numbers 8 and the number 50 tell us that there is something beyond the natural. There is an element that is not midah, that is beyond the measurable, and that's what 50 is. As a lamed is beyond Mem Dalet Hey, lamed is beyond
7 times 7 plus 1. That's how you have to look at it. There's really the pattern is 7 and 8, and then
Either way,
Okay.
I'm feeling very old.
So we'll get back to the text. We have yet another note about Yefet, the second note there, NB. There is an anecdote about why the youngest son, Ham, is mentioned in the middle, and the other two brothers tried to correct him and took him between themselves, but without results. Ham remained a Ham. So there was an attempt to influence Ham, both by Shem and Yafet, and he obviously couldn't be influenced by the words of this midrash, and therefore you see that he's placed in the middle because both of them are trying to contain him, and they stay on either side of him to try to contain him. So that's why we have this weird distribution of the middle son, the youngest son, the oldest son, because the middle son differentiated himself based on his ability to perceive infinite and spiritual. The oldest son maintained the presence of stability within the confines of the physical world, and both of them tried to confine Ham, the youngest son, who perhaps was not as not as compliant with how he should have controlled himself. And we continue on. V'cham. So this one has a zakef gadol, and again, it's a little bit difficult to see. But look, we have a zakef gadol. So it is going to be this 3-part note with a strong separation from everything that's before, and then perhaps something that's lower and something that's higher that we're reflecting. All 3 sons of Noach had the same parents, enjoying the same upbringing, and Ham did not fit into the pattern of Noach's influence, and thus was mentioned separately, as expressed by the shape of the reading mark, not eating mark. So Ham stood out amongst the others, so that's why we have that line in the Zakef Gadol. And he had the way that he was before and the way that he was now. So he has his two dots and a strong separation. He gets a Zakef Gadol. And again, that emphasizes him and makes him stand out. Who, which is translated as he. Number 9 with a tipcha. So this is going to look backwards and have a slight pause after it. Among the two older brothers, Ham was a dissonant character, and he was a type unto himself, as specified by the reverse direction of the reading mark. So he's going to look back at his ability to stand out, i.e. the Ham with the Zakef Gadol on, and that's where he's going to be focused and stuck. So he's going to right, Ham with the Zakef Gadol has a pause after it, and then who, the defining him, is also with the tipcha pausing after it. So this is defining him as somebody who is standing alone. He's alone. He's differentiated, and he's himself. So we see in the words of Megillah Esther, Vahi b'mei Achashverosh, and it happened in the days of Achashverosh. Who's Achashverosh? Is he somebody else? Does he have roots? No, who Achashverosh? He's a brand new something in and of himself. Achashverosh was a usurper to the throne, so he had no lineage, he had no connection. Similarly, Ham is standing alone. Here's his name, and here he is. Who? He's standing alone by himself. So again, the pauses that are inferred by the notes tell you of this differentiation and this ability to stand alone and to exhibit different characteristics.
What's looking back about it, though?
It's a tipcha because it's emphasizing back to what we said about v'cham.
Oh, not back to his life
not
before.
Not back to his life before,
right,
just
right.
Focusing back on himself and his own differentiation.
Right.
He's himself. That's who he is. V'cham, who? Number 10, Avi, the father of, with a mercha. So this is going to be slightly connected to what was before, but mostly focuses forward on what's going to come after. As a father of his sons, Ham tried to transmit his own principles to them, to carry on to later generations, as illustrated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So he's taken this philosophy now, so he's slightly connected to V'cham, but he's mostly going to transmit that forward to number 11, Kina'an. In contrast to the old rule of making the oldest son a follower, Ham gave his preference to his youngest son, Kina'an, who the father found most suitable as a follower. So, so there are many sons of Ham, and the youngest son is Kina'an. Normally, you would give the respect and the title and the honor to the oldest son. Ham decided that he was going to pass on his philosophy and his way of looking at the world to the one that he felt most matched his philosophy and his passions, which happened to be the youngest son. He didn't respect the natural order, if you will, and passed on his mantle to the one who would seemingly not have the most respect.
Well, yeah, Canaan is the one who also was involved with, we'll see the demon section. But what's interesting is, I was trying to wait, when we talk about you've been Noach with a Eve, right? It's the four levels going down, right? Shem, Ham, Yefet, and Canaan. Right? They all went onto the Teva united, but they came out Shem, Ham, Yefet, Canaan.
So
you know what we know about Ham, he didn't want the, and that's why he
right?
Yeah. But he didn't want to originally split Yerusha if Noach would have another kid forward, but he's willing to do it in Canaan as long as he carries on that philosophy.
So we should mention on the tape that yesterday was Yom HaShoah, and certainly people came out of a traumatic experience, perhaps as a fairly unified group from before, turned into people after a major trauma who had very, very, very different and passionately different attitudes because of their experience. So we certainly see this happening to the sons of Noach, who went through a major trauma. Everybody they knew, everything that they thought was in the world was gone. So again, this is a response to it, that people turn to different things, and certainly it's a model to look at events. We're always told that when the rabbis face a difficult situation, an adversary, they look at the Torah to try and find something that will give them an answer or a clue as to what that means. And this is perhaps a great example of that. This is certainly something that is relevant for us today. So we're going to sing the pasuk, and we're going to notice how that first phrase, Vayu b'nei Noach, sort of sits by itself, and then we're going to watch how Shem is separated from the other two brothers, and then we're going to say Ham and Hu are both going to be separated out from the moving forward of Avi Canaan. So we'll read it again.
The Shem has the English Shem, because Ham should be Shem. You know what I mean?
Yes, well, English is not a Torah language, so a lot of things in English don't make sense. Vayiyu v'nei Noach hayotzim min hateva Shem v'cham vayafet v'cham hu avi Canaan. So hopefully that differentiation stands out more when you overemphasize the pauses that are there. We are on page 89, Parak Tet, Pasuk Tet, 9:19.
What you said is that it starts off B'nei Noach, going out, and then by the end it's Avi Canaan, like go to father instead of Shem. We see that by Lavan. Remember when Lavan didn't? He also reversed the order with Betuel. Remember, and it says Betuel should be first, and it's Lavan Betuel. It shows his chutzpah, it's chutzpah that his father should be first, and we're going to. Well, I'll comment on it when we get to it. We're on page 89, 9:19. Shlosha, 3. This is with a mercha, so it's going to be lightly connected to what's come before, but mostly sweep us forward into what's going to come afterwards. The three brothers started the human races, which retained characteristics to be manifest throughout the ages, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So what we've had from the last sentence is what's going to go forward. So lightly connected to before, but sweeping forward into the future. So these differences between the three brothers is going to be passed on. Eile, of these, this is a tipcha. So this is going to draw us back to what has come from before and have a slight pause afterwards. By arborization of these protoplasts, many nations emerged, all being derived from a common stem, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So when we try to draw, quote-unquote, a family tree, we see characteristics that start from what everybody inherits from their father being passed on, and then branching based on situation and culture and other influences and so on. But they all start with the root characteristics that are given to them by these three sons of Noach. So what goes on from here is what starts from the three different branches of this tree, not starting from Noach. So they're not starting from the common influence, they're starting from this differentiation that they learned as they went out of the ark. And we have a note. This indicates that all people are brothers having common interests. So, because Shlosha and Eile is a closed phrase, Merchat Tipcha, with a pause, we see that everybody does have something that's common to them. There is that complete phrase, Shlosha Eile, but the influences do have differentiations in them as well. Okay. just before, I know you said it before, but I always get confused with to look at the Merchan Tipcha as one note. I'm used to it as singing, but
Merchan Tipcha are two separate notes.
Right. But
And
did you
again,
just make some comment about this?
so
Yeah.
the perush is defined by giving each
Right.
note its own paragraph, separate from the pureness of the perush.
Right.
You'll notice that every so often we have something that says NB.
Right, not a bad.
When we have a note like that,
Right.
that is telling us that we're not strictly
We can
relying
set that
on
up
the
as a-
rules that
Right.
have been defined for separating things out by these numbers that we're giving. So each word phrase that has a note on it has its own paragraph. Whenever we come to a note like this, we might be introducing a midrash or something that is a combination of things that doesn't strictly fit the pattern that we defined in the introduction.
Right. So here,
So because it's right, that's why he separates it out as a note, because he's going to talk about that word phrase with the merchat